Hello, and welcome back to I Completed 80s Music. I'm the 80s mixtaper, your host on this fantastic voyage into the best, brightest, and baffling tunes of the 1980s. For the uninitiated, in 2016, in a fit of pique, I had the mad idea to try and listen to every single from the UK charts from the 31st of December 1979 to the 31st of December 1989. Approximately 3,000 good songs and a spot of COVID later, and I'd done it. This podcast is the child of that idea. In it, I take songs which caught my eye, dissect them, and we're doing it in calendar order. Unfortunately, due to copyright laws, I can't actually play the songs in the pod, so you'll hear a short introduction from me to the track, and then I have put links to playlists for Spotify and Apple Music in the episode description, so you can pause the pod and listen along. We'll then talk about each artist and the song in depth. Right now, it's about mid-April 1980, and it's here that we need to pause briefly before we get into the episode proper. So when did the 80s begin? Well, I've been reflecting on that. Well, naturally, you might think the 1st of January 1980, of course. That would seem the most logical. And if that was the case, then the Pina Colada song by Rupert Holmes, as the first song charting in 1980, would be the start of the 80s. But that's yacht rock. It's a very 1970s sound. No, the question means, when did 80s music begin? When did it become definable as a sound which some would say is so 80s? That's an almost nebulous question, and everyone has a different answer. Some say the 80s began in 1979 when Gary Numan and Tubeway Army released Our Friends Electric, a song so synth-packed and industrial it literally kicked off the electronic age, and with it so many bands who found fame in the 80s. I'm looking at you, Depeche Mode. Some also say it's not until as late as 1981 when Duran Duran released Planet Earth, a tune that takes what Newman did, adds disco's pizzazz and funk's bassline, plus the very 80s voice of Simon Le Bon, and voila, we have the 80s. But isn't that a little late though? I would like to proffer a different opinion. The 80s start on the 5th of April 1980 with the release of Sheena Easton's Modern Girl, which we covered in Playlist 8. Honestly, this question has been bugging me, but I think that's the answer. So why, we might ask? Well, as you'll definitely see in the next two episodes, disco is still alive, just, and so is punk, just. But what you're listening for is a critical mass of sounds which pick out that we're in the 80s. From episode 4.5, where we first entered 1980, Living by Numbers is close, but the vocals sound reedy and sort of 70s like all the new wave bands. And Underpass by John Foxx is too raw and prototypical on its synths. From playlist 5, Living in the Plastic Age by Buggles is a hot contender just for the production alone, but it's still too jaunty, a characteristic of new wave. It's not the Specials or any of the ska acts, as they're seeded in the 70s, and while essential in the 80s story, are kind of gone or evolved by the end of 1981. It's not Michael Jackson in Playlist 6, he's still doing disco at that point. The Police still sound like the 70s Police. It's not Atomic by Blondie in Playlist 7, Blondie got her break in the 70s. No, for me, the moment the 80s arrive is the 5th of April onwards with Modern Girl. We get this prototypical girl power song where the synths feel more advanced and are driving the rhythm and melody, and a fresh pop starlet in Sheena Easton. It just sounds 80s. And then we get Genesis Turn It On Again and Phil Collins' evolution as a major star of the 80s. We get The Cure arriving with The Forest. We get Madness planting the flag with Night Boat to Cairo, a few months away from dropping Baggy Trousers, which arguably is more a Madness song than a ska song. And at the end of this episode, track 7, we'll get to a song which, if you were captured by aliens and they wanted to know what 1980 sounded like, this might be what you'd play them. Sure, in this playlist there's still lots of disco and ska and funk, but as we move forward now, we're going to see more and more of the names of the 80s creep into the picture, and disco, some funk, punk, prog rock, ska, and even new wave give way to a different kind of funk, soul, new romantics, metal, and eventually pop music as we still know it today. And with that, let's get into the tunes. Tell Me on a Sunday, a whisper of a title. You can hear it right. The heartbreak, the polite desperation, the Britishness of it all. Released in 1980, this song was part of a collaboration between two names you may not immediately associate with each other. Andrew Lloyd Webber, the undisputed monarch of musical theatre maximalism, and Marti Webb, a quieter name in the grand cavalcade of Lloyd Webber collaborators, but a powerhouse nonetheless. We met them both in episode 5.5 for the better-known Take That Look Off Your Face. You know Lloyd Webber, Phantom, Cats, Evita. The guy has made a fortune from chandeliers crashing and cats in spandex. Marti Webb, she's more like the artist you discover after the main act, who somehow outshines its raw emotion. This is her moment, her signature, her I Will Survive, but with fewer disco balls and way more classy heartbreak. This is track 1, playlist 9. Let's backtrack for context, because this song isn't just a random single floating into the void. It's part of Tell Me on a Sunday, a musical about a young English woman navigating love and heartbreak in America. It's a breakup letter, a long-distance phone call, a journey from London to New York to Los Angeles. Originally written as a standalone concept album by Lloyd Webber and lyricist Don Black, it became something larger, a hit show, a TV special, and later, half of song and dance. That's right, this is a song that helped invent a two-part hybrid musical. It's like Lloyd Webber was bored and decided to redefine stagecraft while drinking tea. Tell Me on a Sunday is the song that ties it all together, the confessional anchor in a work that ping-pongs between dazzling hope and devastating loss. And here's where Marti Webb comes in, like the vocal equivalent of a shoulder to cry on. Webb was a known quantity in British theatre circles. She'd been in Lloyd Webber's Evita as an alternate Eva Peron, but she wasn't exactly a household name. This song changed that. She recorded the album in 1979 and performed it on TV in 1980, and suddenly she was a star. Her performance was vulnerable, yet strong, her voice soft, yet searing. There's this unshakable truth in her delivery. She sings it like she's lived it, like she's begging you, the hypothetical dumper, to just do her the one favour of not breaking her heart in public. Musically, this song is pure Lloyd Webber, achingly melodic, understated but insistent. It's deceptively simple, a piano-led ballad that floats like a sigh but cuts like a scalpel. Don Black's lyrics are a masterclass in specificity. Don't write a letter when you want to leave. Don't call me at 3 a.m. from a friend's apartment. I'd like to choose how I hear the news. Take me to a park that's covered with trees. Who hasn't been there? Who hasn't wanted their heartbreak to feel at least a little cinematic, a little manageable? The single was a flop in the UK, only reaching number 67. But more than its chart performance, the musical cemented Marti Webb's place as a leading lady. Lloyd Webber would go on to write bigger, louder shows, but there's something uniquely affecting about the intimacy of Tell Me on a Sunday. It's the anti-Phantom, no masks, no crashing chandeliers, just a woman, her voice, and the fragile pieces of her heart. Decades later, Tell Me on a Sunday feels timeless, like a postcard from the past that still arrives right on time. It's one of those rare songs where every note, every lyric feels utterly earned. And for all of Lloyd Webber's bombast and theatricality, it might just be the one of the most human things he's ever written. You don't just need to listen to it, you feel it, you are it, because heartbreak, as it turns out, doesn't need a Sunday. So we've got the last few disco tracks to mop up in the coming episodes. This is one of them. Picture this, it's 1980, disco's glow is fading, but funk is only now strapping on its funky shoes. Enter the Average White Band, the Scottish funk group, yes, you heard right, whose blend of rhythm and soul has already delivered the world gems like Pick Up the Pieces, and now they drop Let's Go Round Again, a track shimmering with nostalgia and romantic optimism. This is track 2, press play now. Before we dive deeper into Let's Go Round Again, let's rewind to the origins of the band itself. Formed in 1972 in Dundee, Scotland, the average white band fondly known as AWB was the brainchild of 6 talented musicians. Alan Gorrie on bass and vocals, Hamish Stewart on guitar and vocals, Onnie McIntyre on guitar, Roger Ball on keyboards and saxophone, and Malcolm Molly Duncan on saxophone, and Robbie McIntosh on drums. Despite their origins in the less than funky Scottish Highlands, they had a singular mission: to emulate the electrifying soul and funk sounds emerging from the US. Their big break came in 1973 when Eric Clapton invited them to tour as his opening act. This exposure led to a deal with Atlantic Records and the release of their breakthrough 1974 album AWB. The LP's infectious single Pick Up the Pieces became a global hit, reaching number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the US and number 6 in the UK. With its tight instrumental groove and jazz-inflected funk, the song solidified AWB's reputation as masters of the genre. Tragedy struck in 1974 when drummer Robbie McIntosh died in a heroin overdose. The band regrouped, bringing Steve Ferrone on drums. Despite the loss, they continued to churn out hits, including Cut the Cake and Schoolboy Crush, which showcased their mastery of funk with a pop sheen. By the late 1970s, AWB had firmly established themselves as one of the few non-American acts with authentic funk credentials. By the time Let's Go Round Again was released in 1980, AWB was looking to adapt their sound for the new decade. Written by Alan Gorrie, the song's swirling orchestration, lush strings, and infectious grooves were produced by the legendary Arif Mardin, whose resume included Aretha Franklin and Chaka Khan. The track struck a balance between disco's fading glamour and funk's enduring groove. On the UK singles chart, the track climbed to number 12, spending 11 weeks in the top 40. It's a standout moment in the band's career, not just for its commercial success, but for its stylistic persistence. Many acts were moving away from disco's infectious energy by 1980, but AWB doubled down, crafting a song that felt both nostalgic and forward-thinking. For fans, Let's Go Round Again is a love letter to second chances, couched in a groove that refuses to quit. So next time the classic spins, whether at a wedding or on your favourite nostalgia playlist, take a moment to appreciate the genius of AWB and their commitment to keeping the funk alive. Some things, after all, are worth going round again for. Next up, a band we're briefly going to say hello to before they really get into their groove in 1982. Whitesnake, the iconic British rock band fronted by the charismatic David Coverdale. If you're new to the band, buckle up. You're in for a ride through bluesy hard rock with a flair for drama and guitar heroics. Our focus today is on Fool for Your Loving, one of their earlier minor successes. This is track 3. Released in April 1980 as the lead single from their third studio album, Ready and Willing, Fool for Your Loving was initially written as a potential song for B.B. King. Instead, it became Whitesnake's own song of heartbreak and blues. The song was a collaborative effort between Coverdale and guitarists Bernie Marsden and Mickey Moody, with its lyrics capturing a vulnerable man lamenting a love gone wrong. Musically, the 1980 version of Fool for Your Loving strikes a balance between riff-heavy rock and blues-infused melodies. It features Coverdale's soulful vocals, supported by Marsden and Moody's twin guitar attack, John Lord's atmospheric keyboard work, Neil Murray's driving bass line, and Ian Pace's dynamic drumming. The result is a polished yet gritty sound that exemplifies Whitesnake's early years. In the UK, Fool for Your Loving peaked at number 13 on the official charts and performed well internationally, reaching 53 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the US and breaking into the top 20 in the Netherlands and Ireland. This marked Whitesnake's growing presence as a global rock powerhouse. Fast forward to 1989, Whitesnake re-recorded the track for their album Slip of the Tongue. The updated version, featuring the guitar virtuoso Steve Vai, brought a more polished and glam metal edge to the song. While the 1989 version achieved higher chart positions in the US, reaching number 37 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 2 on the mainstream rock chart, it didn't eclipse the raw magic of the original for many fans. Fall for Your Loving remains a staple of Whitesnake's live performances and an enduring classic in their catalogue. It showcases the band's ability to blend hard rock intensity with emotional storytelling, cementing their reputation as legends of the genre. If this is your first time hearing Whitesnake, let Fall for Your Loving be your gateway. We'll tell their full story once we get into their big hits. It's a song that bridges their blues rock roots with their later stadium-sized swagger, making it a perfect introduction to their discography. Next up, if you grew up in the early 90s and were a big Utah Saints fan, and I know there's a few of you out there, see if you can spot the sample taken from this next song. It's the Crown Heights Affair's sparkling disco anthem, You Gave Me Love. This is track 4, playlist 9. Press play now. Crown Heights Affair formed in Brooklyn, New York in the early 1970s and initially played under the name The New Day Express. They evolved into Crown Heights Affair under the guidance of producer Frida Narangis and began to blend their funk roots with the emerging disco sound. Their self-titled debut album, released in 1974, introduced their vibrant brass sections and dynamic rhythms. By the mid-1970s, they signed with D-Light Records, home to the funk legends Kool and the Gang. This partnership helped the band refine their sound and gain international recognition. Their breakout moment came at the 1975 hit Dreaming a Dream, which climbed to number 1 on the Billboard Dance and Disco chart. This success set the stage for a string of dancehall favourites, including Galaxy of Love and Dance Lady Dance, each showcasing their knack for uplifting grooves and rich instrumentation. As disco began to dominate mainstream music, Crown Heights Affair became known for their high-energy performances and infectious tracks, which combined funk's soulful depth with disco's polished sheen. Albums like Dreamworld in 1978 and Dance Lady Dance in 1979 solidified their reputation as dance music pioneers. By the time You Gave Me Love was released in 1980, the band had perfected their formula of feel-good anthems. The song marked a peak in their career, marrying heartfelt lyrics with their signature sound. Released on D-Light Records, it became a major hit in the UK, peaking at number 10 on the official singles charts and staying in the charts for 12 weeks. Lyrically, the track radiates gratitude and emotional resonance, with lines which evoke themes of redemption and connection. Musically, it's an irresistible blend of funky, almost deep and dirty bass lines and soaring vocals, all set to a danceable groove that reflected the transition from disco to the emerging boogie sound of the early 80s. You Gave Me Love was part of the album Sure Shot, further cementing their influence during a pivotal era in dance music. Crown Heights Affair's journey to You Gave Me Love reflects the spirit of 1970s and early 1980s dance music, optimistic, boundary-pushing, and irresistibly funky. While disco waned in the early 80s, the band's tracks, particularly this one, remained staples in clubs and continue to resonate with fans of vintage funk and disco even today. Imagine walking through a hazy corridor of ska rhythms, sharp suits, and the thrum of youthful rebellion. And here comes the beat, swaggering with a song so angular, it feels like it's slicing through the decade itself. Mirror in the Bathroom, an existential anthem for the dance floor, brimming with tension, paranoia, and that glorious two-tone bounce. This is our track 5 today. The beat. known as the English Beat in North America, dropped this gem as part of their debut album, I Just Can't Stop It. We met them first in episode 6.5 with Hands Off She's Mine. Let's get the stats out of the way. This track climbed to number 4 on the UK singles chart, marking itself as one of the highest achievements of the ska revival. It's built around a taut reggae-inflected bass line, all jittery urgency punctuated by Andy Cox's jagged guitar riffs and Dave Wakeling's deadpan vocals. But here's the kicker. This isn't a straightforward ska song. It's a fever dream. The lyrics are claustrophobic and hypnotic. Mirror in the bathroom, please talk free. The door is locked, just you and me. It's a sly, surreal meditation on self-reflection, literally and figuratively. The song explores themes of isolation and vanity, all with a razor-sharp edge. It's deeply ironic, drenched in post-punk malaise, yet irresistibly danceable. Behind the music, Mirror in the Bathroom was groundbreaking. It was the first single to be entirely recorded digitally, signalling a shift in the industry and how we'd all experience music in the coming decades. It's hard not to marvel at how this technical innovation mirrored, pun intended, the song's themes of modern alienation. Mirror in the Bathroom by the Beat is deeply entwined with the racially and politically charged atmosphere of the late 70s and early 80s Britain. This period saw significant social tensions due to high unemployment, racial discrimination, and the rise of far-right movements, alongside a vibrant countercultural push for racial unity embodied by the two-tone movement. The two-tone ska revival, of which the Beat were a central figure, was explicitly political. Bands like the Beat sought to bridge racial divides, bringing black and white musicians together to create a new hybrid sound that drew on Jamaican ska and British punk. In this context, Mirror in the Bathroom can be seen as more than just a personal meditation. It reflects the broader societal anxieties of the era. The mirror metaphor is versatile and can symbolise introspection, self-obsession, or the fracturing of identity. Amid a politically fractured Britain, where questions of national identity and cultural inclusivity were hotly contested, the lyrics take on additional resonance. The closed bathroom door could represent a retreat into individualism, a refusal to engage with the chaos outside, paradoxically isolating yet safe. It's a private space, but also a liminal one, where one confronts their own image. Additionally, the song's frenetic rhythm mirrors the anxiety of the time. It speaks to a kind of existential claustrophobia, which aligns with the broader societal pressures and the alienation felt by many, especially within marginalised communities. While the song doesn't explicitly reference racial issues, its position within the two-tone movement inevitably layers it with this meaning. The Beat's lineup and ethos, melding members of different racial backgrounds, were a direct challenge to the era's racial divides. Their music, including Mirror in the Bathroom, can be read as a call to reflect on individual and collective roles in a divided society, even if the message is encoded in the abstraction of the lyrics. This interpretation gains weight when you consider the political undertones of the Beat's broader discography, which often tackled issues of inequality and social justice head-on. The atmosphere of rebellion and questioning authority permeates even the songs that aren't explicitly political, embedding them with the era's larger cultural and political narrative. Listening to Mirror in the Bathroom today, it remains unnervingly fresh. The beat, no pun intended, still pulses like a panic attack, urgent and electrifying. It's not just a song, it's a cinematic slice of 1980, sealed in vinyl and etched into the soul of anyone who's ever felt trapped in a crowded room or in their own mind. Track 6 today, She's Out of My Life, a soulful ballad from Michael Jackson's Off the Wall album, which was released as a single on April the 19th, 1980. This poignant track showcases a tender and emotional side of Jackson, contrasting with the disco-infused energy of previous singles like Don't Stop Till You Get Enough and Rock With You. Written by Tom Baylor, the song was inspired by Baylor's personal heartbreak, but Michael imbued it with his own unique vulnerability. Let's listen to it now. The single peaked at number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the United States, making it the fourth top 10 hit from the Off the Wall album, a first in history for a solo artist. In the UK, the song reached number 3, marking its resonance with an international audience. She's Out of My Life is remembered for its stripped-down arrangement. It provided a showcase for Jackson's vocal range and ability to convey deep emotional nuance. In contrast to tracks like Don't Stop Till You Get Enough or Rock With You, which were emblematic of disco's peak, She's Out of My Life reveals Jackson's raw vulnerability. The song taps into themes of heartbreak and loss, universals that Jackson rarely expressed so overtly. Quincy Jones, who produced Off the Wall, recognised this emotional range and strategically included the ballads to diversify the album's appeal. Jackson's tearful delivery at the song's conclusion was no accident. It was a testament to his connection with the material and Jones's insistence on authenticity. Off the Wall was a groundbreaking album, blending genres like disco, funk, pop and R&B, and redefining what a solo artist could achieve. The record's commercial and critical success laid the groundwork for Jackson's subsequent dominance in the 1980s. While She's Out of My Life was not the album's lead single, its success as the fourth top 10 hit solidified Jackson's reputation for versatility. It demonstrated that he could pivot from kinetic anthems to heart-wrenching ballads with equal mastery. This track also opened the door for future slow-tempo, introspective hits like Human Nature in 1983, Man in the Mirror in 1988, and You Are Not Alone in 1995. Each of these songs extended Jackson's ability to evoke profound emotion and showcased his evolution as an artist attuned to themes of connection and vulnerability. Songs like You Are Not Alone revisit the deeply personal tone of She's Out of My Life, yet the former is bolstered by a lush production and broader vocal performance, indicative of Jackson's later era. Human Nature, meanwhile, takes a more atmospheric approach, as we shall see, intertwining personal reflection with sophisticated synth work. These ballads represent a continuum showing Jackson's ability to blend heartfelt storytelling with innovative musicality. Ultimately, She's Out of My Life stands as a landmark moment in Jackson's career. It revealed an artist willing to lay bare his emotions and push the boundaries of what pop music could convey, helping pave the way for his legendary status. This track occupies a unique space in Michael Jackson's discography. While he would later become synonymous with groundbreaking visuals and boundary-pushing pop anthems, this ballad highlighted his ability to connect intimately with listeners, offering a glimpse of vulnerability rarely seen in his public persona. Finally today, we're diving into the quirky and utterly British synth-pop anthem You'll Always Find Me in the Kitchen at Parties by Jona Lewie, a song as much about social awkwardness as it is a time capsule of 1980s charm. If you've ever been stuck next to the cheese board with a warm lager in your hand, while Handsome Dave chats up Delicious Debbie while you play third wheel, well, this song's for you. This is track 7, the final song of our episode today. Released in May 1980, this single from the prolific Stiff Records label reached a peak of number 16 on the UK singles chart, staying in the top 40 for 7 weeks and the top 100 for 9 weeks. It was a bigger hit in New Zealand, climbing to number 3 and remaining on the charts for an impressive 17 weeks. It's a classic of its time, epitomising the witty, left-field style that defines Stiff Records. Jona Lewie is the archetype of the offbeat genius you didn't know you needed but suddenly couldn't imagine life without. Born John Lewis in 1947 in Southampton, England, he emerged from the pub rock scene of the late 60s and 70s. A world where musicians traded stadium spectacle for gritty intimacy, setting the stage for punk and new wave revolutions. Lewie started his career with Brett Marvin and the Thunderbolts, a blues band with a twist, famous for their oddball humour and rootsy stylings. They scored a surprise hit in 1972 with Seaside Shuffle under the pseudonym Terry Dactyl and the Dinosaurs. But Jona wasn't built for straight paths. His heart belonged to the margins, where synthesizers hummed and narratives grew wry and idiosyncratic. By the late 70s, Lewie became a fixture on Stiff Records, home to misfit geniuses like Ian Dury and Elvis Costello. Stiff's ethos matched Lewie's, a little anarchic, a little off-centre, but always catchy. This partnership birthed his most enduring work, including You'll Always Find Me in the Kitchen at Parties and the perennial anti-war Christmas anthem, Stop the Cavalry. Lewie's music is an odd cocktail, part pub sing-along, part avant-garde, with a synth-pop twist that feels both dated and timeless. His songs often tell stories of awkward partygoers, of soldiers longing for peace, and they wrap absurdity in sincerity, making you chuckle while you hum along. In true Lewie fashion, his career sidesteps easy classification. He's a relic of his time who still sneaks back into our lives, whether through commercials, nostalgic playlists, or Christmas compilations. In a way, he'll always be in the kitchen at the party, quietly crafting songs that never quite leave you. The track originated with lyrics by Keith Trouble, to which Jona Lewie added a new ending and composed the melody on a Polymoog synthesizer. Lewie recorded most of the backing track himself in his 8-track home studio, with contributions from Norman Watt-Roy on bass and Bob Andrews on percussion. Notably, the backing vocals during the recording session were sung by the wives of the producer and Stiff Records owner, though Kirsty MacColl lent her voice during live performances. Lyrically, the song is a delightful narrative of a wallflower navigating the peripheries of house parties, set to a sprightly synth-driven melody. The title itself is almost a mantra for the introverted and socially weary, a sentiment that still resonates. In 2010, the track gained renewed life when IKEA used it in a kitchen-themed ad campaign featuring Lewie as the host of an all-kitchen party. This track remains a quintessential gem of British pop, and if I was looking for a song to demonstrate to aliens what music sounded like in 1980, I'd particularly reach for this track. It is the perfect encapsulation of primitive synths, witty British lyrics, and lo-fi superstardom, and hence it's a top-tier Pantheon track. Duran Duran it ain't, but it's perfect for anyone who's ever sought refuge in the kitchen at a party. Whether you're there for the snacks or the solitude, Jona Lewie will be right there with you. That's all we have for this episode. Join us next time when we dive deep into the second half of Playlist 9 and we first meet orchestral manoeuvres in the dark, understand the madness of the TV show MASH, and visit Funky Town with Lip Sync. We'll be taking a short break over Christmas, but we'll be back in a fortnight. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all my listeners in 2024. It hasn't been the easiest of years, but I really appreciate the faithful who stuck around for the reboot in June and waited a few months between episodes in September due to very difficult personal circumstances. I very much appreciate it, and I'd like to wish each and every one of you a very Merry Christmas and a happy 2025. Take care.